Some of California's wealthiest residents are threatening to leave the state over this proposed 5% wealth tax. Kate Rogers has the details. Kate, what a firestorm. Ro Khanna was the least popular member on X last night. On my
feed. My gosh. Sarah, good morning. So this is a one-time tax that would call for California residents worth more than $1 billion to be taxed the equivalent of 5% of their assets due in 2027, payments spread out over 5 years. It is retroactive. It would apply.
This is freaking insane. Before I even get started, I don't even know where to start because this is insane. I know billionaires have a lot of money, but you need to put things in perspective. So they're offering a 5% tax on wealth of billionaires that currently live in California. That's what the tax bill is. 5% on wealth. So 5% seems like a little amount, but you have to understand something. 5% of $1 billion is $50 million that is due in 2027, literally a year from now. And if you pay it over a period of 5 years, then you can pay it over 5 years, but you're going to be having to pay interest on that 5-year balance, which is, and the funny thing is, that's if you live in California. But let's keep going. This is quite interesting.
To state residents as of January 1st, 2026, which is just days away. It's also important to note the tax proposal not officially on the November 2026 ballot. It might not wind up there at all, but it is causing a public battle on whether or not this will simply kill innovation and cause a talent exodus. Venture capitalist Peter Thiel and Google co-founder Larry Page are considering leaving the state or reducing their California ties by the end of the year. That's according to the New York Times reporting. Others, including investor Chamath Palihapitiya, fired back on X, writing, quote, "The inevitable outcome will be an exodus of the state's most talented entrepreneurs who can and will choose to build their companies in less regressive states." Gary Tan, president of the startup incubator Y Combinator, blasted the proposal as a, quote, "unrealized gains tax that puts founders on the hook for becoming paper billionaires." Other states like Washington or Florida, for example, without income taxes could look more appealing for launching companies in the future.
All right, so let me try to put things in perspective for people. So in case you're not aware, so basically what's going on is in California, a lot of people are complaining that the billionaires are not paying taxes and so on and so forth. So they're proposing a new tax bill. The tax bill is going to be taxing billionaires. If you're $1 billion or more, then you have to pay 5% of your wealth. And it's mainly targeting unrealized wealth. So think about it this way. If you start a company, the new Uber, the new Lyft, whatever Airbnb company that you want to start, right? When you're starting it from scratch, it's worth nothing, right? And then with innovation, hard work, and all those things, then it becomes worth something. And a lot of times that's where you have Silicon Valley, where, all these smart people gather together to create something out of nothing. The reward is, being wealthy on paper, because what's going to happen is if you create the next Uber and you get a valuation of $1 billion based on the share that you have, you could be a billionaire. And that is the conversation that they're having now, which is this tax proposal going to cause people to leave California and go somewhere else? And of course, they're going to go to places that are more attractive, like Florida. Florida is extremely attractive because the weather is better. That's number one. There's a lot of tech people that are moving to Florida as well. So that's number two. And they also have no state income tax. So it's like the weather is nice. There are other billionaires there, so you're not going to be the only billionaire going there. Jeff Bezos already relocated there and stuff like that. And, that there's a reason why, right? So it's going to be more attractive. Like, why are people staying in California? There's nothing in California. There's wildfires in California. So it's like there's no reason to be in California if not Silicon Valley. That's where the pool of, smart people are based out of. So a lot of companies and founders move to Silicon Valley because they're hoping to tap into that, that resource. But very quickly, it's a capitalist world that we live in, and people are going to start thinking that, it's simple math. You stay here, you pay more, you move there, you pay less. It's easier to just move there and hire somebody else and pay them more. Instead of paying $50 million in taxes, You could hire some really qualified people and give them amazing packages that's worth a lot less than the 50 million you would have paid anyways. So in terms of people are going to stay in California because of that, that's BS. They're not. It's simple math. And most people that are in that tax bracket are very smart financial guys. They know how to look at their numbers, and it's just not going to make sense. There's no benefit to staying back in California. But let's see what they say.
Now, as you said, Representative Ro Khanna, whose district does include Silicon Valley, defended the ballot initiative, saying that entrepreneurs will stay in California because this is where the talent they need is concentrated. Writing on X, quote, Jensen wasn't thinking, I won't start this company because I may have to one day pay a 1% tax on my billions. He built here because the talent is here. You know, reminder, California has lost some big companies like Tesla, which relocated its headquarters out of.
Yep, Tesla was gone. Toyota also left California and moved just a few blocks away here in Texas. They're actually probably 20 minutes from me in Plano, Texas. Headquarters moved 2,000 plus families and their employees, their money, everything. So don't get it twisted, man. Some of those legislative rules that they're coming up with is going to ruin the state. People are going to leave California, and it's already been proven that people are leaving
the state, but the battle here, Sarah, really sparking over future companies launching here versus companies leaving and taking talent with them.
And I think that, and what strikes such a nerve, and why I felt like it was bipartisan criticism of this. It wasn't just billionaires on the right or wealthy entrepreneurs on the right. It was on the left too. Is that when you start a business, it's paper gains, right? And
exactly.
And tax and the unrealized. It's not like real estate. It can fluctuate in a given day or in a given month. And so it disincentivizes entrepreneurs to start businesses because they're just going to have their assets seized by the government, which cannot.
I mean, think about it this way, right? Why would you move? And there's two things on this topic, right? It's number one, talking about companies that are presently here, whether or not they're going to move, as well as the owners like Larry Page and all them billionaires that live in California currently. For the existing ones, they're going to be looking at it like a math equation. Is it going to subtract to my wealth, or is it going to add to my wealth? And if it subtract to my wealth to the point where it makes sense for me to move, they're going to move. They have the finances to move and the resources to make it work where they can actually shift their businesses in a different place. So they have the means to do that. So it's not an issue of whether or not they have the means to do that. So California is creating something, hoping that these guys are going to stay, but there's a very good chance they're going to leave because they're very smart people and they're going to take the talent with them. Then on the other side, we're talking about future companies, right? So if you have the Mark Zuckerberg in college that lives in California that's thinking about starting a company from the dorm, or Jeff Bezos creating his new company from the garage, and they all live in California, they might consider moving out of state, because if you start a company in California and this tax bill passes, then what happens is, the idea is this, right? For those who don't know how venture capitalist works and all that stuff, you start a new company, you have an idea, you formulate that idea, you create it, you show proof of concept. Whether or not you're making money, it doesn't matter yet. Amazon wasn't making money when they got new investors in it. Same thing with Uber, with Lyft, and all that stuff. So it's not about being, it's not necessarily about being in the money yet, right? But you create this business idea, and then you have venture capitalist firm, which are companies that fund ideas. Shark Tank. Everybody knows about Shark Tank. Basically, it's the same thing. So people that have these companies are going to search for individuals that are creating companies, and those individuals are going to those people, but they're not going to do this if they live in California, because if they go to those people, the first step that happens is it's evaluation. They need to get an idea of how much this business idea is worth, right? So if you create an AI company like NVIDIA, that's why it's so crazy or whatever, but if you create a company that has a massive potential, that everybody needs that product, the valuation on that is going to be massive. So that's going to happen. That's going to end up making instant billionaires. And that's what's happening in Silicon Valleys. And the thing is, the companies are private. They're not selling stocks or anything like that. So it's considered unrealized gain. So they're billionaires on paper. And this tax bill is basically saying that once you become a billionaire, if you create a company, you owe us this money. So why would you in the first place start that company in California? Because what's going to happen is you might be able to create that company, and then you're guaranteed to have to pay these taxes. First off, how are you going to pay the tax? The thing is unrealized. Did anybody think about that, right? So if you have a company and, let's say, I don't know, one of these companies in New York invests in a company on a valuation of like, 20 billion and you're worth 1 billion and then your bill is 50 million. Who's got 50 million to pay for that tax? And then if you don't pay for it, you're going to have to pay, you know, interest on that. It's crazy. Like it makes no sense. I feel like they're just coming off the top of their heads like, yeah, we got to tax people and all that stuff. So let's tax the billionaires. No, the billionaires are smart and they have resources to be able to move things around. So no, if I was a billionaire, there's no way I would stay in California, which makes sense why Larry Page and these guys are thinking that they may have to reconsider whether or not they're going to stay or leave. It's
Manage
crazy.
its healthcare system.
Well, and one other thing that we'll be watching here for sure, of course, is where Governor Newsom lands on this, because he did say at the Deal Book conference that, this is not a good idea because it encourages people to leave the state over the long term. Of course, this would decrease state income tax revenues. But
That's right.
This is also an opportunity for Newsom, who, is floated by many as someone who's going to run for president, to side with working class people. So does he wind up, siding with tech elite here, billionaires, or does he side with the working class and the SEIU and Healthcare Workers Union, which are putting this initiative forward for Vote, guys?
Got the need for speed?
This is crazy, guys. This is crazy. I'm telling you, man, California is going to get messed up, man. They're going to be losing some really good and talented people. And people are just going to be moving to Florida, where the weather is so much better. I mean, tell me in the comments below. And I'm not even talking about people that are like, let's tax the rich or anything like that. Forget that. Like, let's not talk about that for right now. Let's talk about if you were a billionaire, you only had 1 billion, okay? Not 100 billion. If you're a billionaire and they propose a bill where you have to pay 50 million in taxes, a one-time tax, because you still have to pay taxes going forward, right? But you get a one-time fee for 50 million bucks. Would you stay in California and pay that 50 million? Or would you say it makes no sense for me to pay 50 million to California when I could use a fat 20 million and go to Florida and buy a penthouse or buy a mansion or 3 mansions for 20 million? Like basically, instead of paying taxes, you could use that 50 million and buy even more assets to level up even more, or even start businesses or whatever the case may be. They don't even understand what they're saying. It's freaking $50 million, man. Like, and you're talking about capitalist guys, man. Those guys are like opportunists and they're like math, like they're smart guys, man. Like there's no freaking reason why anybody would pay that amount. So for me, it's like, and then again, the next thing I was gonna say is like they're taxing your net worth. Now, for people who don't know what your net worth and how it's calculated, you need to understand that your net worth is basically your asset minus your liability. So let's say, for instance, if you own a property worth $1 million, right? And your capital gains or whatever, it's worth $1 million. But if you were to sell it, you would maybe pay fees and pay off the loan and all that, and you're left with 500K. That's what you're going to be paying. That's the equity that you have on that house. And then they're going to look at other stuff or whatever. So they're trying to assess the value of all your asset. They're going to take out the liabilities that you have, and then that difference, which is a billion or more or whatever, is what they're going to tax. So I gave you an amount of 50 million based on 1 billion. If you're worth 100 billion, damn, what is that? 100 billion? That's like 100 times. So that would be, gosh, 50 million, half a billion, 5 billion, maybe. Yeah, 100 billion. 5% will be 5 billion. So if you're, this is fucking crazy, man. So if you're worth 100 billion, you're gonna pay 5 billion in taxes. Fuck that. That's it. Excuse my language, but yeah, no, they're not going to be paying that. There's no way. Who's going to do that? But that's besides the point. Back to the fact of what I was saying, which is you need to assess their net worth because you need to know that that person is worth really 100 billion to charge him 5 billion. So how do you get that amount? Because you have some people that are extremely good at hiding their net worth. Everybody's net worth that you see on the internet is their estimates. So if it's a tax, government, bill that shows up as a bill, they need to know the exact amount to be able to tax you on it. So I think there's going to be a challenge as far as validating or confirming what that tax amount is. And of course, people would naturally try to say they're worth less. So there's no way to enforce. I mean, they're going to have to spend even more money to try to enforce how to validate that, which is another crazy thing. Like, there's no way they're going to be able to do that. And then think about it this way. So if you're a billionaire, so you qualify in the pool of people that you need to actually need to pay. If you're a billionaire and you own, let's say, 100 million in stocks and Nvidia and Facebook and so on, those stocks do fluctuate. So there's a very good chance that the value of those stocks are worth 100 million at that time. But then, so now the value is 100 million at that time, and you're going to pay taxes on that 100 million. But there's a very good chance that by the next day or by next week, that 100 million is worth 80 million because the value of your asset dropped considerably. So the whole thing just doesn't make sense. There's no way for it to be. It's not practical. It's not enforceable, and it just doesn't make sense. Period.
Well, a billionaire backlash is brewing in California over a proposed bill that would tax the ultra rich, with some reportedly ready to move their businesses and their money across the country to Florida. So that is where we find News Nation's Ryan Bass. Ryan, good morning. What would this bill mean for California, and why Florida? Why is that the destination of choice?
So, Kelly, Florida checks a lot of boxes for the ultra wealthy here in the state. Of course, there's no state income taxes. That's certainly a big one. There's clear residency rules, and there's a growing tech scene that's coming here to the Sunshine State as well. If this bill becomes a law, state analysts out of California say that they could lose hundreds of millions of dollars a year in tax revenue. It could lead to job losses, investment losses, and innovation tied to its tech economy as well, which we know is huge with Silicon Valley in California. The 2026 Billionaire Tax Act is backed by a healthcare labor union and would impose a one-time wealth tax, including on money tied up in stocks or private companies, on anyone considered a California resident on January 1, 2026, even if voters approve this later. Supporters say it could raise up to $100 billion for healthcare, food assistance, and education. Now, the Golden State is home to some of the country's wealthiest tech power players.
All right, so let's take a look at the billionaire faces. So you have Larry Page with Google, Larry Sun, Oracle. You have Mark Zuckerberg, obviously, with Facebook, Meta. Nvidia is over there. Jensen. PayPal. I didn't know this guy. Peter Thiel. Oh, of course I know this guy. I know the name, but not the face. And then you have Jama Social Capital. I've heard that before. Bill Ackman, everybody knows him. He's a capital guy in New York and all that stuff. Very, very smart guy. But interesting. Look at all these billionaires, man. This is crazy. I wish I could have my picture in there, you know, to inspire some of that diversity as far as the billionaires club. But yeah, billionaire. That's what billionaires look like, guys. It's crazy.
talking Google co-founder Larry Page, Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, Oracle's Larry Ellison among them. Under this proposal, all of these folks you see here could face a one-time tax of $1 billion plus. Now, this proposal is triggering many wealthy folks. Hedge fund titan Bill Ackman wrote on X that, quote, California is on a path to self-destruction. Hollywood is already toast, and now the most productive entrepreneurs will leave, taking their tax revenues and job creation.
This is crazy. Bill definitely said it well. Think about it this way. When you think about California, what's in California? What's in California? You know, you have Universal Studio, the whole movie scene and all that stuff. That's fading away. That's going crazy. And then after that, you have the tech bubble, which is Silicon Valley and all that. But then it's like if they keep going on this path, they're going to lose all their talent. That's it. They're going to lose their talent. You know what I mean? With the creation of AI, now you can do a movie production without a movie set, a movie studio, without characters. Like AI is off the chain. So California is going to lose its whole movie scene very quickly, okay? Not to mention Netflix connected, merged with, acquired, what was it? Universal Studio or something like that? I can't remember. Tell me in the comment below which one it was. But basically AMC theaters or whatnot. But anyways, what I'm saying is the traditional movie scene is dying, man. AI is taking over. And it's like the next step that's left is the tech bubble, the tech guys and Silicon Valley and all that. And that talent is about to go away. I mean, you could see he's one of those guys. Like, think about it this way. I'm living here at home at my mom's place, as an example. And my mom tells me, you know, you've been here. I hope you enjoy it here, but I'm gonna have to charge you $1 billion to stay here going forward. Like, I'll just tell her no. Like, I'm just gonna get an apartment right outside next door and I'm good. I can get an apartment with the exact same house, same layout as what I have right now. So why would anybody stay in this house or in California? $1 billion. Like, that's not gonna happen.
Elsewhere. Now, defending this wealth tax proposal, California Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna says the tech leaders leaving the state defies common sense, and he says that adding this tax would, quote, be good for innovation, Kelly.
Yeah, BS. Well, he's preparing to run for president from what it sounds like or what they said earlier. So he's just trying to look good. It's just publicity at this point. So it's not about common sense for them to stay. Common sense is keep your money. You know, you've worked hard for it. I get it. They should be paying taxes. I get it. That's a different conversation. However, this video is simply referring to the fact that if it goes live, people are gonna dip. That's just what it is. I would. Jeez, $1 billion, man. Why $1 billion as a tax bill? They would rather go somewhere else. Period. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you like, comment below, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next video.